Welcome to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. The podcast where Christine says fear, questions everything, and takes bold action. Christine Spratley is a former professional boxer, nanny, and 29-plus year corporate warrior turned founder of HBIC Advisors, where she is a public speaker and coach. She's been saying fear her whole life, many times without even realizing it. So tune in, spread the word, and get ready, because this isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fuck Fear with Christine Spratley. And as always, we've got our shots, and we have our guest here today she's not in studio, so you can't do the shot. These are not shots. These are regular, just not, I don't know what you call them, juice shots. It's ginger, and we're doing immunity today, or as Joe likes to call it, immortality. Just like a guy, shit, live forever. But so we do that, and it wakes us up and grows hair on our chest, right, Joe? All right, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. There's a lot of ginger in it, and a lot of lemon. That one got the back of my throat. Oh, we are ready to go. So today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, is really about burnout. And it sounds pretty simple, right? Like, yeah, it's burnout. Everybody's had it. But Rhea and I are going to explore some things today. And it's in discussing this with Rhea, I thought it was really good when we talked about it being the idea of burnout being that you're receiving too little. It's not that you're giving too much, so to speak. It's about giving too little. So today's episode, we've got two of these. We've got two different episodes that we're going to do. The first one is kind of looking at burnout. We're going to go through the definition because everybody knows I love definitions. And Rhea and I are going to explore that, why it's not a woman problem. It's a systemic problem. It's not our failure to just manage better. And also what happens to us. And Rhea, I'm really glad you're here for this, because there's the things that we, think happen to us, like we see, but by the time we see them, it's like we've already burned through 5 red lights, and we're at the bottom and we're past exhaustion, or it's manifested itself in other ways. So I'm really glad that you're going to be able to, because I know you've had experience with that. I have had experience. We're going to share those, but also just kind of talk about not just the physical, but the psychological, because I know you've looked into that as well, and the cost. I'm going to talk a little bit about, for those of you that are, hey, we got to stick to business. I'm going to talk a lot about, the cost of the business, and just really, I don't think people realize, and I'm going to say this, because of the lack of understanding or the lack of acknowledgement of a woman's role, the greater role that we play, the emotional role in teams and work and things like that, household management. Who knows all of the birthdays in the family? Who knows all of the kids in the family? Who knows when the milk is going to expire? All of that stuff. Who does that? Women do, and I don't think that's acknowledged or sometimes even thought of. And so therefore, when it comes to assessing what will burn you out, it doesn't get looked at for women at all. So we're going to touch on that. And then we're going to go into kind of a little bit, we're going to bust some myths about, again, going back to the system and the structure of it versus a spa day. Spa days are nice. They don't, or there's another one that I like, and we'll go into that about, well, we'll just do less. Yeah. All right. And sometimes that doesn't work out either. So let's kick this off. And Rhea, I looked up the definition. I did it through the Oxford definition because there's a bunch of them out there. And then I did it from the World Health Organization. And I'd like to get your thoughts on this. burnout, the state of being extremely tired, ill, either physically or mentally, because you have worked too hard. And again, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And then the WHO, the World Health Organization, says a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And there's 3 dimensions: exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or cynicism. I ranked really high on that towards my burnout on both of those. And reduced professional FC. And what I think is on both of those, my immediate brain went to, fuck you, I'm managing just fine. Or it's more, we're not managing it right, like has not been successfully managed. And what I realized is that I have internalized this rather than looking at the system and saying, okay, burnout is a state of being extremely tired, ill, either physically or mentally, because the system, because I've worked too hard, because the system had me set up to work too hard. And in the World Health Organization, a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress because the workplace has not been successfully managed that stress. It's kind of how I reframed that.
You see, I'm going to throw you. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with the definition. I think it's classically, it's demonstrating actually our attitude systemically towards burnout. You've worked too hard. You've done this. And I know that's your point in that actually there's no option other than that. But I think when we think about the workplace, as you've said, the woman's workplace isn't just at work. It is everywhere. It's not just, do you know what I mean? So I think I'd also throw in the ill either mentally or physically, emotionally, spiritually. Where are we? It's not for me quite grasp the whole morbidity of burnout, the heaviness of it, actually, and how it might not actually start physically or mentally. I would bet actually it does start emotionally. I would bet it does start spiritually, being unfulfilled and undervalued, and then it trickles out. That would be my thoughts with that.
And when I say this, and again, I had that same reaction.
Yeah.
These definitions suck. I took it personally. But I took it personally. And I know society does. So when I framed this and said, no, it's because you've worked too hard. Well, the reason why I'm working too hard is the system that I'm in has me working too hard. So F you very much. Or the workplace stress hasn't been successfully managed. That's not me to manage. I like, it's everybody else. It's the allocation of everything around me. It's the structure. And so even though, and again, we didn't make up these definitions. So maybe that's our next episode for tomorrow. You and I will come up with our own definition of burnout. But I thought it was interesting how, like you say, from the very start of the definition, without us changing it, we look inward.
Yeah.
It's our problem. It's wrong with us. It's our illness. It's our it's our physical or mental being too tired. Those are all the symptoms of it. Okay. And it's a state of that. But the cause of it isn't because it's because I've worked too hard, but we're not causing me to work too hard.
No, absolutely. And I think, I wonder if that's something.
The inadequate.
I wonder if there's something in kind of, again, I know we've kind of touched on this, we're working too hard, we're giving, and the lack of receiving. Nothing is coming back in, other than oftentimes chronic, more and more and more, give more and more and more. And there's an element of, I think, with burnout, resentment. I think it perhaps starts with resentment internally.
Well, I think it is the equitable distribution, whether it be at home, whether it be in a romantic relationship, whether it be an equitable
No.
does not mean equal. Let's be clear on that. But it's equitable distribution, and whether that be in the workplace, because like we talked about earlier, it is,
Mm.
it's a systemic failure, not us. And it's we are often waking up feeling burnout compared to there's like 33% of women wake up feeling burnout versus 25% of men in the employed. And this is a 2023 survey. And so something's not balanced, for lack of a better word, in the system.
Yeah.
In the system. And I think there's another study on here. It's Forbes. They did a Gallup data survey of why women burn out more often than men. And I think it's like you were saying, because we don't receive the things around us we need to not burn out. And it's not because we are needier. It's because we are giving more. Think about, I thought about this with my teams because I did talk to some of my team members and I was like, again, we talked about earlier, who knows the birthdays, who worries, who does this, who stays up and worries about the emotional team members, like, hey, how are they doing today? How are they doing? All of that stuff, along with all the details, along with all the notes, along with getting the project out the door. It's typically women because we're raised that way. We're raised to be the nurturers. But while we're giving our time and our energy towards towards the technical aspect of whatever we're doing, in your course, in work with health and care, we're also giving the emotional aspect for the team and the nurturing aspect.
No.
We're not getting any of that return. And then we're going home, like you said, to another situation where we're giving both the technical aspect, we're cooking or we're arranging or we're taking care of this or we're taking care of that. And then we're doing the emotional aspect. And we're not feeling
I think
up.
that's the thing. I think there's an inherent expectation, and I know I felt it in myself, of every last single drop in that glass before you go to bed at night. That glass is empty. That cup is empty. There's no threshold. There's no bit saved for self. It's I've got to pour and pour and pour. Oh, I've got one more drop. I'll give it over there. But where can I give this 5 minutes of energy that I've got before I fall into bed? Because I've got to give it, because otherwise I don't deserve that rest. Otherwise I'm not done. Does that sound familiar? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's somebody that I follow on Instagram, and I probably sent you some of her stuff where she's telling her husband different things, and it shows his reaction. And there's I think it's called the Huckleberry app, and it is an app that monitors the women's emotional workload at home, and the actual, like, how many hours they spent nursing, how many hours they spent pumping, like just. And anyway, and that's where I found out the Huckleberry app. And it's really a cool thing. I started looking up, and again, that's all the stuff that nobody's tracked. Nobody is. You are giving your energy, your time, your emotion, your worry, and it's one of those things where I think for a lot of women, like you and I, may sit there and go, "Ooh, this does sound familiar. I can't. I'm not. I need to think about this before I get rest and deserve rest." Where I think there are still women out there that don't know that they're doing that. I think that they just go, oh my God, I'm in bed and I've got 5 other fucking things. But I don't think that I think they should do it. Because it took me a long time to, one, realize that I was giving every last, I don't fall asleep until I fall asleep. And two, I didn't realize, how you crash. It's like, if I've got something in my cup, something's wrong with me. And I didn't realize that. And I've heard it so often in women that I coach and colleagues. At one time I was in was at a conference and I was speaking there, and I had met a colleague that I used to work with, and I'm like, let's go eat. I mean, it's like we were on Mountain Time, so they were on Eastern Time, so it wasn't. They're not up. Like, she's like, no, I got to send this out, and I'm like, why? No one's going to work on it tonight. And it was that. Oh, I got it. And I'm like, no, you haven't eaten all day. Let's go eat. And it's that thing of I've got to do that one more thing, and I do think it is. I'm not going to go into the patriarchy because we could go down that rabbit hole all we want. I'm going to go into it's systemic in the system. So look at your burnout not as, hey, there's something wrong with me. No, there's something wrong with my system because I can't. If I'm 50, how the hell am I going to fill myself up?
Yeah. Who's there to catch? Who's there to hold? Person that holds everything. There's no space to. And I think there's that chronic fear that I've seen in women that I've worked with of, well, I'm the catcher, so I can't fall. God, I can't fall. What happens then? The whole mountain collapses, the whole deck of cards. Because if the woman's down, everyone's down. You know, everyone's inconvenienced, might be a better term.
Yeah.
It's inconvenient.
I'd say inconvenience.
Exactly.
Everyone has to learn to fish for themselves. I had a call yesterday. I had to change my doctor's appointment. And you know me, I like to talk. So I'm on this call and she asked for my number. And I give it to her, 984-985 HBIC. And she starts laughing. And she said, I said, and then I gave her the digits. And she goes, is that what I think it is? I said, yes, head bitch in charge. And I said, I'm not in charge of your shit. I'm in charge of my shit. I got enough shit. Like you are in charge, you know. And then we started having this conversation. But what was interesting is she was having a really bad day. And I think she was having a really bad time. Not bad as in, oh, I'm having a bad, but like burnt out. Because we started talking and I was like, all right. And she just kind of was stressed. And so I said, okay, look, you know how I do this. I said, look at your feet. You where your feet are at. Look at your feet. Are you safe and you sane? All right. Is everybody around you safe and sane? As far as you know, yeah. All right. And if they're not, they can call 911. Like, you know, and I was like, all right, you're okay. Like right now, right here, you are okay. You can just breathe. You're taking a call. I'm okay. I'm happy. We're going to get to my shit in a little bit. All we got to do is move the date. So let's talk about you. And so we sat there and we talked. And I was like, you know, when you go home tonight, do something nice for you. Like do something childlike for you. Do something good for you. And she's like, but and I was like, you got a credit card? You got a microwave? You got noodles at your house? And you got butter? And you got hot water? Or you water, so you can microwave it. Like they can fend for themselves. And going back, and I say this because she was like, you're right. And I was like, hell, you got a credit card, they can order DoorDash. Like the world will go on. But what's interesting is that in business, I know a couple things happen. When we can get to a point where we go, yeah, the world will go on. But when it's the other party, they look at it as an inconvenience or you're not carrying your weight or because they don't give all this other weight here. And so we get penalized when we voice and we say, hey, I need. And it goes, well, why do you need? We don't need. And it's like, well, you keep on carrying my shit. Maybe you'd need.
Yeah. I think you've just hit on something quite pertinent in that I wonder perhaps if there's an element of being seen as imperfect, being seen as the imperfect mother, the imperfect wife, the one that can't cope, and what that means to a woman's identity. Because I don't know about you, but in my experience, like if I'm a career woman, I can't also be a great wife. That at some point, something's got to give, and it's the perpetual sacrifice. And it's not even inherently that, it's what that then means in terms of how you're perceived, right? If you're the mum turning up with freaking bags under their eyes and uncombed hair at the school gates, you're still turning up. But that's gonna cause, it's gonna rub up something, whether that's teachers or in, the way other women look at you. And also then the way your partner looks at you. I don't know if that resonates, but for me it really does. Being told that you're not coping, but being penalized and not supported for that. And how hostile that is. Kind of how raw that is. Like, I'm only a person. I'm one person, but I'm not allowed even that. Does that follow?
It does. And I kind of take it into, because of course I immediately go into business. That's where I go. We're a panel, where nobody else is asking for this. Nobody else is saying this is what's needed. Nobody else is saying the workload's too heavy. Nobody else is saying, and I remember getting a comment from someone after I was like, hey, this is around promotion stuff, and it wasn't where I wanted to be. And they said, this is what we think you should be at. And I was like, because I had told some things about, hey, this is what the situation, the structure needs to be changed in order for all of us to get there. And all of us meant women as well. And so I was kind of, and I was told, well, is anybody in your position, or no, it was actually even a little bit more interesting. It was stated, some people in your position would not, because of their ego, would not see what a great opportunity this was. And it was like, because I had voiced, hey, this is not equitable in any way, shape, or form. And so I got kind of dinged on some stuff. And I should be damn well grateful, because I'm not performing. So like I should be, but yet it gets weaponized, whether it be in the house or in corporate. I remember having a conversation. We were at economic development, women in. I can't even talk. So we're gonna have to edit the shit out of this. It was area developments, women in economic development's leadership forum. It was last year, and I did the kickoff talk there, and we were there the night before, and we were talking. I was talking to the women, just I hadn't seen them in a while, and in a long time actually, some of them. And one of them was telling me about her endometriosis and how she had to come back, and she got no time, she took time off to go, but no time. And then her KPIs, her key performance indicators, and her revenue and all of that, she had to immediately kick into. And it was like, why aren't you back? Why aren't you back? And it's again, the system. Well, let's do the same thing to the male anatomy. Yeah, be having it and see what you need. And again, it's this thing of we get penalized. So she was like, I can't take any more time because I'll start at the bottom. I have a friend who's taken two tours. We call them tours when you get stepped over in promotion. And one is she had her first kid. Oh, you didn't make your numbers. She had her kid. And then she took another. She had her second child. Meanwhile, they are using her as a PPMD, and she is the best. She was a senior manager. Like, she was acting as a senior manager when I was there, and that was 7-8 years ago. How is like? But again, I think it's this thing, and that's where I think the burnout comes from. Of, wait a minute, the system is not set up to give you what you need. Their system is set up. And again, I feel kind of like conspiracy theory when I say the system, but it is. It is set up to take.
That's exactly it. And I think I don't think it's conspiratorial at all. I think it's full on evidence based. We can see this. I mean, in terms of how that works, the system is set up for men, and it's almost as if, I mean, I've definitely felt this. It being the subtext in how I've been treated in the workplace is, oh, well, you know, women asked to be here. You're here. Keep up. You know, you are taxed. We are being taxed for the fact that we asked to be included. But it's like expecting a ball to sit in a square hole, or whatever that phrase is. It's like, oh, well, come here, but you've got to be the clone of the white dude over there who's looked after at home, who has never born children and doesn't have the biological differences in which women also experience. Thinking about pregnancy, thinking about perimenopause, that affects a huge proportion of women's working lives. Don't bring that here. You know, don't bring that here. We are not here.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, you know. Oh, now you're.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, keep up. You all wanted to be here, right? You wanted to be included. Oh, well, shut up and get on with it. You're giving it. That's enough. Not seeing our value in what we're providing, and the fact that in most workplaces, if women weren't there, oh God, I think they'd burn down, you know. Or people would at least starve. Like, come on.
Who would take
Who
notes?
would print
Oh my
things?
God.
Dear God. Would it smell nice?
I got to tell you this story. This is how bad it. So I go over to we had a deal in Korea, and I go over there, and I've never been to Seoul. I don't speak the language. We're in the office, and I'm the only female that is in the conference room. We're prepping for this meeting, and literally, they're like, the partner doesn't tell me this. The partner from over there tells my partner this to tell me to go make copies. And so he does, which tells you a lot about the partner at the time. And I look at it and I'm like, first of all, I'm the only one that knows this part of this deal, like my part. Not I didn't know the whole deal, but this part of this deal, and it's, you know, I kind of need to be there. And second of all, I'm like, think that one through, asshole. Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm in Seoul, Korea. I don't know where the damn copier is. I don't know how to read it in Korean. Like, how the hell is this? Like, and then let's take a step up. Is that the highest and best use of my, like, come on, dumbass. But that is the level of give. It's bizarre. And again, and I would just say, not everything's like this. We understand that. But there's a reason I would like listeners, especially women, there's a reason for your burnout. And I would love for you to consider, maybe it's not you. Maybe it is your authorizing environment. And it's not authorizing enough support in the right way for you to maintain and operate at the level that you can operate.
100%. 100%. I think you've hit on something that is uncomfortable to acknowledge, but I would say without a doubt. And I wonder if there's also an element of that. That's not, in some of my experience, that's not accidental. It's not accidental. And I think what you've just described, the anger that incites naturally of being treated that way as a woman. I mean, I'm sure between us we could list off hours worth of this, but that treatment triggers that physiological change, that anger, that stress response, which means you don't feel comfortable most of where you spend your working life, most of where you spend your time of your adult life. You're like this, you're on edge, it's hypervigilance, it's stress, it's fight, flight, it's resentment. And that boils up, and cycling it back to that definition induces that physical or mental, emotional illness or dis-ease, right? Because we are not at ease. So it's self-fulfilling prophecy that we get taxed and penalized for more, being told, oh, take a day off, go to the spa, if you can. Most places aren't exactly going to advocate for that either. But hey, go fix yourself. Go fix your problem. Go fix yourself. Like, no. The problem starts here. The cause is here. We're treating a symptom of a systemic misalignment, you know?
Great leadership doesn't start with a title. It starts with bold action. Christine Spratley works with high-performing teams that include anything from boards, councils, and project teams to cut through the noise, craft clear strategies, and most importantly, implement them. No fluff, no endless planning cycles, just real, fearless execution. With humor, practical insights, and a fearless approach, after working with Christine, leaders will step up, take action, and make shit happen. Book her now at christinespratley.com.
It's interesting because I did this, you know, I like to kind of take apart the myths, and it's like,
Oh,
the myths, she needs a break.
Oh,
She's right. And, you know, 70% of burnout variance is tied to the workplace environment and manager, not individual behavior. And this is across the board. That's women. So before anybody out there going, oh, patriarchy, so you're just banging on, this is across the board. So if it's that across the board, you know that shit's skewed for us. And it is. You know, we need structural relief. You know, not bubble baths. And you know, I mean, I don't know how many times I have sat getting my nails done. I mean, I can bring people in here. I used to do it in the hair salon. Go and get my hair done. I'm working the whole damn time. I'm doing the whole damn, you know, and it's and it's just not enough. And then the other myth is she's just not tough enough. We talked about this earlier. 52% of women report 0 hours of restorative time in a typical day. 52, 0.
And I bet that's underestimating. I would put it at 60, 70. Let's be honest.
We can't really tell the truth. We can't really tell the truth. We can't really tell the. I mean, I would just want my listeners to take a moment and think about your day, wherever you're listening. Whether if you're starting your day, think about it yesterday. Okay, if you're at the end of your day, think about your day and go, when did I go? It wasn't, and your brain wasn't on. Whether it was about work, whether it was about the kids, whether it was about the husband, whether it was about something that didn't pertain to you, really. Because I've also realized very little of what I think about pertains to my self-care. It pertains to a lot of, okay, I got to organize this, I got to do this. And I'm saying, and I'm asking you as a listener to sit there and go, okay, what percent? And then my next question, I always have questions, like, how long has it been like that? Like if you look back the last week, what percent each day? You take that average, what percent is restorative? I mean, literally, what percent? I mean, let's just look at facts. Let's just look at it. And if you think that is because you showed up poorly every day, I don't think you're that off. It may have something to do that no one's feeding you. You can't fill from an empty cup. You hit this on the head, Priya, when we first started. It's about fulfillment, fulfilling up. And if your environment's not fulfilling you up, how the hell are you going to continue to give? Wherever that be. And it all runs into each other, I think. I mean, the workplace on the 70% burnout was done in 2023. The 52% of women, that number came from her index mental load study in 2024. So, okay. I mean, and Jennifer Cox talks about this in her book, Women Are Angry. And she gives some great stats in that. But, and I know you've read the book, and but she talks about this and that, where it's like, okay, we've got, like you said before, we got to come, we got asked, and they let us do the dance, and we got our, we got our room where we could go and we could nurse, and we got, and they gave us certain things. But is that really fulfilling us? Is that really restorative? Those are nice, but we're still having to get less pay. We're still having to do the manager's job, but not be the manager, or, like there's still, it's all that's in there, and that takes.
So what? I'm bristling at the word nice, because I don't think it's nice. It's not.
Oh yeah.
What I mean is, nice is receiving a gift. We're not asking for gifts. It's a luxury. We're asking for very basic essentials that mean that our lives don't make us ill. That's not nice, but we're made, then that's the point. We're made to believe, or it's addressed as if it is like, oh, right, okay, so you need to breastfeed. Oh, well, don't do it in the hallway. Here's a room. Oh, great. Let me get on my knees and let me make you teen for the rest of our lives. No. Do you feel me? Like, this is not nice. This is wrapped up.
This is why I like you so much, because every once in a while, your Mary Poppins goes to the side and very bad things come out. That song isn't playing in my head. And I'm like, all right, motherfucker, quit making me sick. I'd like to show up enough today. It's kind of like lead. We don't put lead in paint anymore. Like, come on. I think you guys can do it. It is, but I get it. I totally get it. And it's so true. It's so amazing how, and Joe, I really wish you had your mic on. Not want to throw you underneath the water or anything like that. But I'm just really, I want to males, not, and you're a good guy. Joe's a good guy. And he asked his kids, man, he was telling me some stories anyway, but I'm curious about how this sounds like to us. And because I think men they don't think about going to work and being sick and it physically affecting their work until they've been running.
Yeah.
Because it does happen. I mean, that does happen. I'm not saying men don't get burnout and all that. But I think the system is set up a lot more to, oh, well, you're here.
Yeah.
Please sit down and shut up and be grateful. And really, it's like, do you realize how fast I could run if I had all the things I need just to perform at like a normal level? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I think it all makes sense to me. I was just in a podcast not too long ago with a trauma therapist, and I learned something that I didn't know. I kind of like what I think most people wrongly assume is that trauma is it's a one-time thing. Like there was this trauma, and then now this person has to deal with trauma. But as the guy was explaining, he's like, it can be like long spread out over time. And he was talking about racism, which is, if you always feel like, if you were always feeling the effects of racism, it's a low grade simmer trauma that's just been going on and on and on and on. I think that's what you guys are describing. Like for a lot of men, they don't understand. Like, no, it's different for women than it is for men, and it's just this low grade simmer that never lets up, and that is a form.
That's it.
Yeah. I know you know this, so I want to ask you, because I think also with trauma, because we're going to do a segment on workplace trauma, because there's some trauma shit happening that I didn't even realize was happening to me. But talk about the repetition of that low grade simmer, because your body.
That's exactly it. It
makes you ill.
And I think when as you mentioned earlier, we were talking about that, the chronic taxation on women in the workplace, just simply for being there in that form, in that body. And coming up against that day in and day in and day in and day in, it's the switching on of the stress response. It's the cortisol always being elevated. It's the adrenaline always running. And at some point, when you get that chronic stress on the body, that starts to break down. It starts to malfunction. The nervous system starts to malfunction. The immune system starts to malfunction. And that also, of course, affects us emotively. Mostly, you get that I'm running on empty. And then because of that, maybe you do miss a task, maybe you do miss a deadline, and you're penalized for it, which elevates it more. So you get this almost, it's like I said, that kind of self-propagating negative spiral, which is when you become the woman that needs a break, right? You become the stereotype that they already thought you were back then, because they never gave you a freaking shot in the first place. So it's the cards are already stacked, and they're just sat there kind of going, oh yeah, you make the tea. Yeah. Oh, who am I going to be a little bit aggressive with today? Oh, not the guy I relate with because I look like him, but you. Or, we've not even touched on actual sexual harassment in the workplace. I think that needs a whole other thing, I can only imagine. But yeah, physiologically, it's that we know depression comes from chronic stress, but biologically. So it's almost as if, is anybody surprised that this impacts women more? Because we're also only touching on the one plate here. She's spinning 5 others, So it's no surprise.
And not only that, it's that environment. Plus, when I went through menopause, and perimenopause, like then there's all this other shit going on in your body. Like that I don't have any control over. Where I never had anxiety walking into certain meetings, and I had anxiety. I never, I never had sweats and hair falling out and stuff and now I've got that and this shit. And I remember this like the clearest day. I would about 2:00 in the afternoon, I would be like between 2 and 3. Like, what are we gonna have for dinner? And I'd be like, gotta get this talk. I gotta review this, because everybody's giving you shit in the afternoon to review and stuff. And I'd be like, oh, I gotta get this done. And I'd be like, oh my God, what are we gonna have for dinner? What do we have for dinner? What does he like? And I'm just saying that is like I didn't have a bunch of kids running around. I had 2 stepkids that came, and stayed with us occasionally. They stayed with us a lot when they were younger, and then in high school they were like, fuck, we don't want to see you anyway. Just give us money. But about that time, I would get so anxious because it was like you said, it was another plate. And then it was like, nothing. And then you got to go do it. You got to go figure it out. And it was just always more. And I think it goes back to, if you're not burnt out, that's fine. And we haven't even touched on the levels of burnout, because I think my pain tolerance is so high that I'm burnt out way before I drop dead, or not drop dead, but drop and fall. And that's just because I'm conditioned. I
think
to take it.
There's another level here. There's another angle that I think is quite interesting, in that, as we've touched on, this kind of chronic activation of the stress response, this chronic neurological overstimulation, means that actually we disconnect naturally, because, like I said, we crash out. We get to a point where we're not listening to this. So by the time the body is going, girl, like, this isn't sustainable. This isn't, you need to look at this. We're not hearing it. Like you said, it's got to be screaming at us.
Yeah.
Because the ability to stay in one's body as a woman is very challenging for a lot of different reasons. Because it's picking up on stuff that we don't want to hear, that we know. For example, in the boardroom, you've got someone over there rolling an eye because, the woman's getting emotional. Or, the guy eyeing you a little bit wrong, and you're going, I don't like that. I know what you're doing, and I have to ignore it now because this is a workplace. And if I'm accusing you, then, I might ruin your career, God forbid. It's that chronic, constant pervasive aggression that we have to ignore. That means we don't know when we're sick. We know when we're crashing or we're on our knees. We don't know when we're slowly falling down. And I think it's a skill to learn to tune into that, but it takes work. And when you're burnt out, that's the last fucking thing you need. My fundamental point is we've got to be dead before we start to consider who's giving to us, who's not just fucking taking.
And I think that the one thing, and we'll go into, because this is, if you're wondering where we're going with this is one of two. So we're not just going to leave it here, but we are going to have hey, what do you do? What do you do how do you start to realize you're falling and or that you're burnt out, you're done, fucking done. And then what do you do about that? And then also, because Ree, you've got some things, and then I've got some things about how you can communicate some of that in relationships. It's kind of funny because I've learned that by not doing some of those things, and not having my partner do those things of checking in and saying, hey, what is this like for you? But I want to share with our listeners. We talked about this. You have a story of burnout, time when you hit, and what that looked like. Like when you were like we can talk about the falling, but like when you got to wherever that burnt place was, what was that like? And I'm going to share mine with, and I didn't, even after I went through it, I didn't know that's what it looked like. And I was told that was someone else. I'm curious for you.
Exactly the same in terms of I didn't know, I didn't have the word for it in terms of where I was, but it was, I think the one day I realized that I had this moment of going, I'm not invincible. And that might sound ridiculous, but I thought I was. I thought if I just got, another coffee, if I got an extra hour of sleep the next day, I'd be okay. I was not. I woke up and it was as if my body had died and I was still in it. As bizarre as that sounds, that was the feel of it. And when I look back, it's so obvious as to why. It was I worked through the entirety of the pandemic at hospitals, assessment centers.
You just gone through, you lost all these things, like you had worked, and then but what? So you woke up and you were like, okay.
I woke up. I tried to go about my day. I was in my car going to work, my hands shaking, focusing on the road in front of me. I got out of my car and I was walking to go into the building to do an on-call shift. And I just couldn't. I was out of breath. The physically, like my vision was blurred. Everything was spinning. And I sat down and I went, Ree, you now have to see probably 50 sick people. And to be honest, you're probably more ill than most of the people you're going to see today. And that idea, I remember sitting there thinking like, how can I care for people? I, if I'm honest, have lived on cereal bars, coffee, 3 hours sleep, and hypervigilance for the past 3.5 years. I can't tell people they're sick. I could barely string a sentence together. And to be honest, Christine, it was scary. It was really scary because I thought I could do everything. And people were still looking at me, expecting to be the one making it better for them. Literally, physically, because that was my job. But also, that was my role. Everyone around me. Oh, we'll fix it. Yeah. Oh, we'll do that. Like, she would, but she's dead. And that was really how it felt.
Well, and your body is like, it's dead. It's very loud. Yeah. It's mine mine, because I wasn't as in tune with my body, but mine started to look like one of the first symptoms was I started not giving a crap about things that I liked. And not depression, but like work, like projects. I was doing big projects, you know, and they were great. They were complex. And I remember this one was, and I just was like, and thank God I had a great manager at the time, and he just knew the numbers. I mean, he always knew. And I could always, once I knew the numbers, I could boom, 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 boom. But I just was like, whatever. And what happened was his dad got ill. And it was the second time, and his dad ended up passing. And I said, you go take care of that. And this is when I started to realize I was like, something was, and I had known, and I was trying to go. What happened was I knew that I didn't want to do what I was doing. So I thought it was just work. That's all that's wrong with me. It's just work. I love. And so I found it, but I couldn't do it yet because I'll just tough it out. And so I'm going to fill my bucket and do it at work a little bit and over here. But I was falling. I was losing ground. And he took off, and it was the end of the year, and we had all of the compliance for one of our clients to do. And he had worked so hard on setting up certain systems. And I mean, he's just really good. And I came into it, and I was so disconnected that I was like you said, people would just assume. And I always had the cliff notes as long as he was around, and I could, and I'd check his stuff and everything. But it's easier reading the cliff notes than it is 30-page contract and 5 of them. And but he wasn't there with the numbers. He wasn't there with the dates, and we had to bring in some other people that weren't familiar, and it had to be done right. And what I realized is, if I really wanted to support him, because he was the type of person that his dad was dying, and he would check in and be like, don't forget this deadline. This is where this, and I kept going, you need to knock it off. Jason, knock it off. Quit fucking doing this. Like, go be. And I thought, Christine, you can't he has put so much time and effort. You cannot screw this up. And I had to get back into it. And then, but I that's when I realized how far away I was from it. Now, I don't need to know every detail in my position, but I need to be able to step in and make sure that the people I care about can go, I can support him. If I'm supporting you as your team leader, whatever, then that means when your family gets sick, I don't let things drop. I care enough about you to make sure my shit's good. And that's when I was like, wow, you not only don't care about these way big projects that everybody wants, you just, well, whatever. Okay, something's off. But when I really got to a point, and I had been going to therapy, and this describes me physically, and it describes me emotionally, where I was. My counselor, therapist, Karen, told me, I sent her my speaker video, and she started crying. And then what you don't realize is, when you came in here 4 years ago, you would go and you would sit in that corner. You'd come in all, looking good. Just sit in that corner couch, and you'd get scoot way back, and you wouldn't make any eye contact. And you know me, I'm like eye contact, con here, boom. And and she said, you just cry, and then you say, well, I got to do this and I got to do that, and you just cry. And then she said, you do that for weeks, and then it turned into a month, and you but you'd never make eye contact. And she said, you tried to get as small as you could, and then about until the hour was up, you'd notice the time, wipe your, and I to this day I can do this. It's time. All right, let's go.
Yeah,
and I'm right now. And you'd sit up, and you'd wrap up the session, and you'd walk out. And I remember times I would do that, and I would go do those really big deals. Yeah. And I would go into those rooms. And what I don't think I understood at the time, and I've talked to you about this, we've talked about it today, about the levels of stress, the chronic stress and the cortisol levels, all that's still going on inside of me. When I'm walking back into a situation where I'm still getting more of it, more stress and more stuff on top of it. So not only have I have no relief to begin with. My baseline is now up here.
Yeah.
And you just start piling. And she's like, and I just realized, because I had no idea that I was that disintegrated inside. And again, I wasn't on HRT, which is something that I had to learn about. But take that aside, those other stressors, which are systemic, still there.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly the thing, because even during mine, I was going to therapy. I was doing yoga, and in myself, I was like, oh, well, if I just get up an hour earlier and I could do this, I'll be able to do that. And then I'll be able to do that. And it's a plaster, we're putting plasters on plasters on plasters, realizing that the more we keep putting like thingy, we're putting, we're repairing the tire, right? But we're running the tread. We're never stopping the tread down. And it's like you can only kind of bend yourself so many ways until you will break, no matter what happens. Because as you say, it's external, it's the setup. And it's us trying to fix it in us. And we can't, because it doesn't start with us. The downfall is a symptom, it's not the cause, as you say. But I think that the issue with being so depleted, and I know in myself, is I couldn't make a decision. I didn't know. I knew I wasn't happy, but I was so up that I couldn't fix the mess I was in. It took so long to have the energy to figure out and to look around and go, oh shit, this was inevitable. Because this is what it's like to live as an adult woman. It's really fucking hard.
And I remember having conversations, especially about my work. Hey, I really don't. Because I hated revenue time. I hated it. I know some of them just went through it with the end of fiscal year end. And I was talking to, oh God, it's brutal. It is so brutal. They laid out, I mean, the numbers are the numbers, and you better meet them, or you're just gone. That's the way it, and everybody, and I just, oh God, I would get itchy and I would get, ugh. And I remember talking to my husband, and he was like, well, you're going to do what you want. And I was like, oh, great. Then you're going to come into the private sector and you're going to go make the money. And I mean, he made good money, but whatever. And he's like, oh, well, we'll just, we can live on less. And I was like, and that's the thing, is if we don't hold it all, then everybody has to go down a notch and down a notch. Yeah. And so I remember that years before I even started thinking I wasn't fulfilled. I remember going, oh, I don't. And so what I'd like, because we're going to have this other episode here, what I'd like our listeners to do for today is think about restorative. The last day, take the last day, how much time have you just spent restoring? Not yoga, but like filled your heart and breathe and just did that. Not, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to write out my feelings. No, just fucking be. Down. Or whatever is restorative, truly restorative. And for me, I was so far away from understanding what that was. I thought it was a therapy session. I thought it was all this stuff. And it's, so then whatever it is, because you probably got very little of it to begin with. And then look at the last week and see how much you evaporate. Okay. And then if you're not burnout, okay, just start looking at your systems, your authorizing environment, and going, what could give me more? What 1%, my coach used to say, what's 1% of something that could give me more? Somebody do this instead of, leverage down, or honey, can you empty the dishwasher on a regular basis? Don't thought that down without me having to tell you or remind you, but that's the thing though, those little things, because we're hyper vigilant. So listeners, what are one or two things, little things, or they may be big things, that you can go here, I need this. I'll perform, but I need this to perform. We'll do the contract this way. You want the same level of performance and maybe probably even better? Then give me 1% more. Give me 5% more. I don't know what that is, but just explore. Like, I don't know a lot of women that aren't in a system that isn't giving to the full potential.
And can I add with that request? When you do make the request, look at who grants it willingly, because that will tell you a lot about fulfillment and why you might feel how you feel.
And it will also tell you how they value you.
Exactly.
And that's a very hard thing for me to know. Yeah. And one person, of all the things that you ask or think about, one person that I really want my listeners, because this is hard for me, I do it with, is yourself. You know, if you're saying you've got enough restorative, is it 20%? Is it 50%? Is it 6? Why is that enough?
Yes.
A little bit more. Why aren't you worth more than that? Oh, the kids are worth more than this, or no. You can't fill from an empty cup. So like, why? Says himself, why are you not granting it willingly? Why do you not value yourself and more? So with that, we are going to wrap up, and we're going to do another episode, and we're going to talk about all the different ways we can see the falling and all the different ways that we can get restorative and change the structures around us, or invite people to change the structures around us, and what to do when they don't and what to do when they do. Well, next time, Tubbs.
Thanks for tuning in to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell her what topics you want to hear, and share this episode with someone who could use a pantry full of boldness in their life. Remember, life isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell. So show up, take action, and keep saying fear.